Take two. Peace, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me now that I'm unmuted. My name is Master Menyelek, and of course this is our annual fellowship at the end of the strong. Every Yom Shishi, we gather together, bring in Shabbat, and just, commune with one another, wind down, get ready to move into the strong end. Willfully, you all are doing well. You had a strong. You accomplished what you needed to accomplish. Even if you didn't, you move forward with vigor, and you drew from your internal reservoirs of strength. I see you, Chief Yuya, talking about that never-ending flame. Yeah, man, it's gonna be good, because all of us are here together, and we're gonna be building together. Yeah, man. So as everyone piles on in, I just wanted to touch on a few things, but the topic of discussion this evening was actually drawn from the Anu Way, and it's like one of the first things you read, right? It's in one of the first sentences, so you can't miss it. It's right there. But what comes before that is what I wanted to read, the preface. Typically, when we used to do our Shema, oh, I'm almost dead. Hold on 1 second. Let me grab my charger. It's so professional, right? Okay. Make sure we don't die out. Peace, Agizak. Peace, Akwati Yamino. Yeah, everybody piling in. Okay. Now we got that out of the way. Yeah, man. So, yeah, let's get it. Definitely want to give thanks, of course, to the Most High Yah. Give thanks to Chief Yah for pulling all of these together, just collecting the dots and connecting them like consistently. There's a lot of dots to collect and connect, and he's given us a beautiful head start, an awesome foundation, and we're gonna reciprocate by utilizing what we've received so freely, and sharing it as well. As Yahweh Shai said, freely receive, so freely give. So I wanted to start this off with a reading of the preface. And I don't know if it's just force of habit from the Shema, but anytime I read from the Anu Way, I think of the preface, and it's like instructions on how to navigate this text. So I always think it's important, and I think it's relevant to what we're going to be discussing tonight. So I'm gonna look at my other screen. This book is not to be read only once. These words, the words in this volume are delicately selected and implanted as a code to unlock the treasured faculty of your own brain and reaffirm you with the undeniable spirit of reformation and mercy. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. As you apprehend what is departing from your mouth, you will organize your environment and body aura with the propriety of this dedicated text, or with the property, rather, of this dedicated text. Understanding is an earned perception. You may read a section of this tome, and it may not penetrate today. Apprenticeship is for you to reflect on with humility. Discuss the convictions of this work with your Anu brothers and sisters, like we're doing this evening. Share this information with your people. Your grasp of wisdom will not develop in emptiness. When you study this book, you will become enlightened of the ways of Anu, but you must work for your own circumspection by applying what you are being instructed to do. It is only then that wisdom will be yours to stand on with a grip of discernment. This publication should be read daily. Listen to each line and examine it. Every line of this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated, and this manuscript provides exactitude that will one day become your standard of natural sense. All right, so that was the preface of the Anu Way. Let me greet the chat. Peace up, everybody. Bless up, everybody. Peace, Naya. Peace, After Hava. Peace, Raskush. Peace, Brother Jason Diep. Peace, Aki Isaiah. Aki Zak says, take a line and reflect on that joint for 24 hours. That has helped me look for things to put it with and take a new life. Yeah, that is a good that's a good peace, Sister Yafe, peace, Brother Darren, peace to y'all. That's a good, tip. Yeah, that's definitely a good tip. When we started out with Shema, we used to do like I think we used to do like a section or a paragraph or maybe even the whole like section. After we got some instructions from Chief, we slowed it down, took it. I think we took it paragraph by paragraph, and we would just dissect it and pull it apart. And we would meet. Abayararam and I would meet prior, and we would just go through it and go through it and go through it. To discuss the convictions of this text with your Anu brothers and sisters. It helps a lot. You know what I mean? Having others to build with it. Sharing it with your people help a lot because they ask questions that point out the holes in your study. You may think you're tight, but you're the performer and the audience, so you can't necessarily just judge how well you've grasped it on your own. You've got to go out and you've got to not only speak it when you're reading it alone, but speak it as it flows forth from you. But that comes from repeating it, and each time you say the word, you of course observe what's coming from your mouth. I almost quoted Rush Hour, but you pay attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth, and you grasp the meaning behind them, and then you're like, so 3 paragraphs up, I thought it was saying this. This is what it actually meant, and it's playing in the background in your mind all day, and you're just turning over the soil of your mind and exposing the depth and the nutritious soil that lies under all of that crusty, hardened dirt that's laying on the surface. If you don't necessarily challenge your own thoughts or take inventory of what's going on internally. We're approaching the solstice season, so we're getting close to the month of December, and in that solstice season, it's a time to reflect on some of those. Well, you should do it every day. You should do it constantly. Peace, Aki El Quran. You should do it constantly, like moment to moment. You should be constantly going over what you've taken in and what you've taken stock of, and seeing what fits from what doesn't fit, based on the type of reality that you're looking to create, and the things that you've allowed to like harden and crystallize and get, like Chief would say in the segment on the winter solstice, you let it get crusty, or like Bob Marley would say, or Robert Nesta Marley would say, what song was that? Bellyful? Yeah, Bellyful, but I'm hungry. Rain or fall, but the dirt too tough. There's water falling, there's rain falling from heaven, but the dirt is so tough that the rain isn't penetrating down beneath the surface. So the surface is still hard and crusty. Excuse me. So I wanted to touch on how you can sort of determine what you should keep and what you should allow to fall by the wayside or be consumed by that ember, that celestial ember. And after the preface, you have the very first paragraph of the very first chapter, very first line. It's in the Anu. So who are the Anu? Can you imagine a celestial ember of archetypal animus remaining unadulterated through the ages in select individuals. That entwined flame would be a continual thread that oscillates at the highest frequency the divine measure conceptualizes for earthlings. I'm describing the seed characteristics of the divinely endowed people known as Anu. Who are the Anu? What does Anu mean? Anu are simply people from heaven, right? Um, let's see. Okay, yeah. So you have Anu, or people from heaven, right? And what I thought of cause I was thinking, the strong was so strong, you know what I mean? You had Akizak coming through with the segment, Is It In You? You had Last Strong ending up with okay, do tell, brother Jason. Let us in on it. Share the wealth. But yeah, Last Strong, Sister Maria did an Sister Maria and Chief Yuya had an excellent build, excellent dialogue on women needing to be guided, needing direction from men. And a lot of things were touched on in terms of just the imbalance that happens between the masculine and feminine principle. And it's a design imbalance, and then which I just listened to this dawning, during my movement, during my dawning run, because Last Draw was a little tiresome. So I crashed as soon as I got home and I missed it, and it would have put a lot of stuff during the segment on. Did I say a big word? Yukiri? Peace. Yeah, she just popped up in the chat. I don't know if I said a big word. But yeah, it would have put Aki Zak's segment that he did into even more context if I caught it, but everything happens in its own time. And it gave me some insights to meditate on as well to come up with this topic, because up till like a couple hours ago, I didn't know what I was talking about. It was like I knew I'd know it when I knew it. So after, okay, give thanks, Yumina. Okay, so she put up that first, I guess the first line on the paragraph in the chat. So give thanks for that. But yeah, that first segment that Akizak did, Is It In You? That sort of sparked it. That's where I was going with it. Like, is what in you? Is what in you? And then it's like the ember. Okay, that celestial ember that's burning, that's unadulterated from the beginning. It never changed. It never got malformed. Even though the flesh surrounding it might have been, it never really got malformed. It never suffered the seasoning because it doesn't change. It's that seed of truth that sits within you. And as long as you don't bury it or try to bury it with a lot of untruth or a lot of things that are attached to this realm, which can't ascend beyond a certain point, then you won't necessarily have to worry about losing sight of it, because you can't do nothing to it. There's a show that I grew up like, and I think it's I gotta bring up anime. You already know how it goes with everybody. Everybody's quirks comes out. Even Akira Eden reads the dictionary. Brother Zach knows the matrix back and forward. I pull from anime. Right, so my favorite anime, Yu Yu Hakusho. There was a character, Kaito, his name was, and basically what was happening was there was a disturbance being created from someone trying to create a tunnel between two different dimensions. And because it was open underneath the city where he was living, basically like random people started getting psychic abilities. And his ability allowed him to create a territory, like a spiritual territory. Anyone within his territory can't commit violence. right? And this was based on his own personality, which was he was a nerd. He wasn't necessarily a physical person. So his territory was based on word games, oddly enough. So anyone who utters a taboo word inside of his territory, their soul gets stripped from their body, which is not a pleasant sounding experience. But the main characters make it through all right. But what does happen is he's winning the game in the beginning, and a few people lose. So their souls do get stripped from the body. Obviously, you can't do nothing with the soul. But he does make a comment to that effect. He said, I always found the soul so interesting because it's the only thing you can't make stronger through training, which I thought was an interesting line because you don't do anything with that breath, but you do strengthen your ability to connect to it. You know, you can't train it, you can't make it stronger, can't make it weaker. It just is. You know, it's the truth. What you can do is align yourself with it. It may seem like it's getting stronger, but it's just you getting closer to the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, so I just wanted to, I don't know, that came to mind when I was speaking about that light that's inside of you. Um, so there's a couple of verses, and I I was finding a lot because I was looking into light um, in Torah, and what I wound up finding was the book of Micah, which I think I read it once, and I only read it because I was told to read the whole book, like the whole Bible, and I think I was reading it because I was told to read it, not because there was any interest in it. But I was looking up the word light, and this verse came out, and I was like, "Well, what's Micah about?" So I searched it up. You know, I got the audio Bible with words on the screen, and I went through it. And what's happening is Israel is going through its like I don't know teenage rebellious phase, and it's like you can't tell me what to do, Dad. You know, it's doing its own thing. You know, there's a lot of idolatry. There's people with who are robbing each other, like not just like physically robbing each other, but you know, like banks. You know, people got unjust measures. You have people teaching, like getting paid to teach. You know, certain teachers like, and who's teaching the priests? You know, you have priests getting paid to teach. You have prophets like um, they almost become like fortune tellers. You know, it's like, oh, pay me and I can bless you. You know, it's like what? You know, and they get called out for it, right? So Micah is sent as the prophet, who basically calls them out and lets them know, listen, this is what the deal is, because y'all wilding, you know. So this is what's gonna happen. The few people who have been faithful, you know, this is Micah speaking for Yahuwah. The few people that have been faithful, I'm gathering them to me, you know. But y'all got some rough times ahead of y'all, and this is the fruit of you know your harvest. You know, basically what you were doing, and all peace after G, OG, triple OT. Yeah, but yeah, what I wanted to touch on also, what this segment brought up to mind, and we're going to touch on Michael a couple of times. But what this segment brought to mind was also the segment Chief did on school damage. And the school damage is where a lot of us lost our connection to that light. You know, the light didn't, nothing happened to it. You know, it wasn't like diminished or anything. We just lost sight of it. You know, and we moved further and further away from it based on like Chief describes it as a Ponzi scheme, based on the Ponzi scheme that we got. You know, oh, you go to school, and then you get to go to the next level. Then you go to college, and then you go get to the next level. Then you get a job, and you go to the next level. But you're telling me that if I do these things, I'll have a prosperous life. I'll have a successful life. I don't see the fulfillment of it yet. which is interesting considering I can't remember the verse. Maybe someone in the chat could help me out. But it was like, how do you know that? How do you know that a prophecy is real? How can you tell a fake prophet from a real prophet? And you can tell because what they say comes to pass. What they told us did not come to pass for anyone. You have statistically some people are going to be more successful than others, but the model doesn't work. You know what I mean? The model doesn't work. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on, but just dealing with the idea of light. And I see Sister Yumi, I put the microverse in. Okay, yeah. She was putting in verse Micah 5 and 8, but I actually wanted to start with Exodus 14 and 20. And this is, again, people losing their vision, basically. That's the best way I can describe losing sight of that internal light, that eternal light, double and triple entendres, like what Zach would say in the chat. Yeah, you lose sight of that internal light that is supposed to be a guiding principle. So you can imagine if Chief uses so many, you took all the good examples. But if you're of a lighthouse and you're lost at sea and you can see the light from the lighthouse, then you look out and it'll guide you, not only guide you to shore, but also help you to steer clear of rocks and obstacles. But if you lose sight of the light, then how do you know where you can land? Even if you do manage to somehow find the place that you were sailing for, looking for, you may have looked at it from just reading the stars, but once you get close to the landmass, how do you tell where you're supposed to land or where you're supposed to go? So I thought that was interesting as well. Does that sound familiar? I'm trying, Chief. But yeah, Exodus 14, verse 20, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them. But it gave light by night to these, so that one came not near by the other all the night. I think I gave you the wrong verse. Yeah, I'll skip that one. I might find it once it cools down. But I'll start from a different brand. I feel like I typed that wrong. Yeah, my apologies. But we could start with the Micah 3, 5, and 8. Keep it moving. Thus said the Lord concerning the prophets that made my people err, that bite with their teeth and cry, peace, and he that put it not into their mouths, they even prepare war against him. He said, take your time, Pastor. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, man. But again, he was speaking to those false prophets. And that actually made me think of the boule that Chief had brought up. You have these false prophets. And I say false prophets because, like Chief had broken down, these people are, they're the people who people tell you that they should be your heroes. Popular society says that these people are the ones that you should look up to, or the role models, the doctors, the lawyers, the athletes, the entertainers. Whatever they do, you should see it, or you should watch it, or you should follow it on social media. You should always be able to chime in on the conversation when someone says, did you hear what so-and-so did? Or did you hear what happened to so-and-so? And it's like, if you don't, then it's like, well, are you living under a rock? But even that saying, like living under a rock, it's implying that you're devoid of light, or you're not in the know. Like, where are you? Are you living in a dark cave somewhere? But it should be the opposite, right? If you're living in the light, then there are certain things that you are going to be more focused on that would happen to someone who is designed to be a distraction. They're contracted to be a distraction. They're contracted. They're called entertainers. Entertainment is just a distraction, right? So, continuing with verse 7, therefore night shall be unto you. Therefore night shall be unto you, that ye shall not have a vision, and shall be dark unto you, that ye shall not divine, and the sun shall go down over the prophets, and the day shall be dark over them. Then shall the seers be ashamed, and the diviners confounded. Yea, they shall cover their lips, for there is no answer of God. But truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of judgment, and of might, to declare unto Jacob his transgressions, and to Israel his sin. Right, so Mike is telling you now, like, yeah, y'all was talking all the good stuff a minute ago, but what you were saying was supposed to happen is not happening. Now there's night coming unto you, and what is night is that lack of vision. You can't see that celestial ember that you were supposed to be able to see. It's like that question, like, what is your profession? I'm supposed to be professing what the Most High told me to profess, but yet here I am saying whatever I think will get me a quick buck, or what I think will get me a like, what I think will get me a follow, what I think will get me some sort of earthly recognition. And when it comes down to it, like, it's empty, and it's being proven to be empty. And it's even worse because now here this guy comes and he's it's not even like, is it in you? He's full of it. You know what I mean? He knows what he's getting is right and direct light, and he's a good, like, there's like no filters coming through. So it's not like, well, maybe I should say it like this. Like, nah, this is what is going on. This is what you did, and this is what's going to happen as a result of what you did. And I'm just telling you like it is. I'm telling you what's going to happen. And he's emboldened by it. He's not saying well, maybe you can make a deal. But it's like, no, like, this is what you did. This is what's going to happen. You should still repent and turn back, but this is what's coming based on what you did. Or the trauma lens that Chief spoke on. Yeah, the trauma lens. You're saying things based on trauma, or you may be binding yourself to someone based on trauma. Like the meth head example. Yes, ran out of orange juice. He shared orange juice with me. But yeah, man, those are some of the things that were coming to mind. And one of the questions, I don't have it typed up, but what came to mind as I was reading and speaking about light is there a time, or was there a time, where you lost sight of that light? And what happened? Or how did you regain sight of it? Yeah, trauma bonding is real. It is real. You can hear it a lot on plantation. Let's say. I've worked around a lot of construction sites, and I've seen what happened on different levels of different rings of the ladder, I guess you could call it. The workers always complain that the people in the office have it better than them. People in the office are complaining because the workers aren't doing things that they're not following instructions. They're doing what they think is right, which is not a problem until you realize that they're doing. Sometimes they do things just to spite the people in the office. They don't even have a second guess. It's like, man, you should know. So I'm not going to say anything. If they are asked, what do you think I should do here? You're a carpenter. He's like, well, you're my boss. You should tell me. It's like, nah, I'm asking you because I don't cut wood. Where's all this hostility coming from? Give thanks. Yeah, man. So yeah, was there a time when you lost time of that light? Okay. Uh-oh. Was there a time when you lost sight of that light? And how did you regain sight of it? Yeah. So for me, when I lost sight of the light, um, it was interesting because it was actually in search of the light. It was when I was younger, and it was like not like it was around the time when I was moving away from the church, right? You know the whole thing. I was asking questions that they couldn't answer, and so I was like, I'm gonna find out for myself. I was like, all right. So I started studying things that I was told I shouldn't study, reading things I was told I shouldn't read. Um, Started doing things I was told I shouldn't do. You know, smoking, drinking, premarital sex, you name it, it's there. You know, and it was it was getting to a point where I was only concerned about paying rent. You know, I wasn't concerned about much else but just paying rent and securing, you know, the future. And um, what came next? After that came like more spiritual spiritual leanings, and that led to reading. I think there was like a gathering of people who were studying also set type of material. So we went through the Menunete and we spoke about what was contained in it, just cosmology and how we thought the world was um, structured. And it was the first time I was introduced to the idea of like reality having a certain structure. You know, I always thought of it as just like this misty thing, you know. So I didn't have sight of that ember. I just had sight of what was taught in church. That was still the model that I was going on, you know. And mental models are important as well. How is your mind modeled? You know, um, how does your mind collect or ingest and process and output information? How does it sift between what's good and what's garbage? How does it determine whether or not one of its preconceived biases or strongly long held biases has become obsolete and should be discarded? How does it determine that something that is taken in is good, you know, and is right and exact? You have to have that connection um, to that ember, but your mental model helps you to process and interpret um, all of this external stimuli that we're constantly being bombarded with. Where do I put everything that I'm receiving? Because everything exists, everything is, you know, and sometimes you ignore stuff because you're focusing on more important things, um, which helps you to learn more quickly because you have selective attention. So you're not distracted by every little thing or impulse or, ooh, an ant. You know, you have to be able to have selective attention. But at the same time, your mental model helps you to hold information without I can't remember who quoted it. I can't remember who the quote was, but there's a quote that it's the mark of an educated mind when you're able to hold information in your mind without accepting it or rejecting it immediately. You know, you can hold information and you can deliberate, right? And when once you deliberate, you are able to you're able to gather more information based on what you deliberated previously. You know, it's like, okay, I've established this thing. So what you're telling me here, now I have to determine whether or not that's true. And what you based, what kind of basis you're coming from. Oh, you heard it from the guy around the corner. Okay, yeah, we don't do that. You know, there's no point in even trying to deliberate with you. You know, Aki Zach said he got ripped off one time and thought it was a test of his faith. Um, when I gave my money, when I gave my money over, I wouldn't say I lost the light, but definitely didn't enjoy it. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things that, depending on how you look at it, you could you could make some unwise choices, and you think it's wise based on this is the Lord testing me. You know, but when you look back on it, you realize it was just an unwise thing. It was an unwise thing to do. Just like with me, certain connections and things that I tied to my spirit, and certain addictions that I'd accumulated during my tenure, that I had to actively um, remove. You know, I had to actively remove them. I had to quit a lot of things, cold turkey, and it forced me to even develop a certain level of mental strength. Because quitting something isn't it isn't as easy as a lot of people make it out to be, but it's also not as hard as people make it out to be either. You know? So, Anu Radio says, I'd have to agree with you. I'd have to agree with you on that search for information example. I have lost sight before, and focusing on healthy decisions helped. Okay. Aberani says, yes, I lost lots of my sight due to fear of what direction to go, and an injury left me emotional. I had to open myself up to better counsel, wise counsel, and eliminate persons not progressing in life. Yeah, that's that connection to certain things, and it's sort of what Michael was touching on. Just with a lot of the things that Judah and Israel, excuse me, a lot of the things that Judah and Israel were connecting themselves to, like idolatry and corruption and all of these things that they thought they were getting ahead with, until they realized that they were about to hit a brick wall. You know, the jig was up. Brother Zach says, it was something that I wanted rather than doing the work. I know how to remove the mysticism from things and see things for what they are. Yes, definitely. Because there's a lot of that Jezebel spirit once you leave the confines of that church building, because now you're responsible for your actions. You know, before anything you did, you were just following what everyone else in the building would have perceived as being righteous or unrighteous. So you still had a culture. You know, there's better culture, but you had a culture. And when you remove yourself from it, well, I'll speak for myself. When I removed myself from it, I had to really relearn the importance, or realize the importance of culture in general, because the church had a culture, but it was just it was actually switching up. I think that was what was like my jump the shark moment, because I was already heavily into philosophy. I found it helped me to study better, but it was like very artistic and free flowing, that church. Like there was a arts ministry and things like that, and I was involved with that, the youth ministry. But after, I think the pastor, because of however church hierarchy goes, the pastor of the church that I was at, he was sent to a different church. And where I was, this new pastor, he was like, hi, we changing up some of the rules. We removing some things, we changing some things, we changing the way it's going. And this person was, he was new to the church, and it was like, I think like an election. I can't remember the particulars, but it was between him and someone who everybody knew, and everybody was around. He might have been the right person for the job, but I was like, I just remember this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I was like, I think it's time to go, you know, and that was like my exit. And it might have been a good thing, it might have been a foolish thing, but the only reason it was hard to tell was because I didn't have, or maybe it was easy to tell, it was hard to accept because I was so comfortable there, you know, but I was like, I gotta not go, you know what I mean? And that led me somewhere else, you know. But as we move forward from those points where we lose sight, it's like, how do you know whether or not you made the right choice? You know, if you lose sight, it wasn't like a clear, um, oh, this person is corrupt, or this person is wicked, so it's time for me to go. And it's just, I think it's time for me to go. Something doesn't seem right here, you know. But yeah, I had my own egoic biases as well, because things were changing, you know, and I wasn't comfortable with the change of how things were going, you know. So that's one of the things that can cause you to veer off of a path onto another path. And if you don't keep your eyes fixed on that light, it's hard to tell whether or not a change in the way that you're moving, or a perceived change in the direction that you're going, is actually ordained, or if it's like one of those soothsayers who's like, I'll give you some money, or I'll give you some pleasure, or I'll give you this thing if you veer off this path that you're on and go where I say to go, or if you listen to me and do what I say, you know, regardless of whether or not it comes to pass. So Jason Diop says, I lost my sight when I started following my selfish desire. I can relate. Then, I then can how quickly it hurts the people I want around me. The ability to talk to people above me to make better choices help come back. Yeah, yeah. It's getting around that wise counsel, like Abba Ross was saying earlier. You know, so there's another verse in Micah 7:5. Micah verse 7, verses 5 and 9. It's gonna pop up eventually. But what's happening in this verse is he's basically he's saying what's gonna be happening um, in the end times, and he's also he's speaking to people, from what I've seen, in a very spiritual realm. But he's speaking about your physical attachments, or your physical relations. You know, trust ye not in a friend, um, but be not confident in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that is lieth in thy bosom. You know, like, don't trust nobody. And you're speaking of a time when, like, even if we have this situation, or when we have a situation where, as HTF, you know, do you have a friend that you can confide in, or can you put your confidence in a guy, or even the person that you're lying with in your bosom? Like, who are your people, you know, and who isn't? You know, for the son dishonoreth the father, the daughter riseth up against her mother, the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men of his own house. Yeah, man. I'll get to Brother Darian, and then I'll come back to that. He says, my vision was dark back when, allowing the world around me to dictate who and what I am supposed to be. I had to isolate my darkness to begin seeing light. I had a similar thing when I was younger. I used to always stay from around people, and I don't know why, you know. But people always used to talk to me from the view of not corrupting myself. That was always what elder people would say to me, and I'm not sure why, but they would always see me and be like, "Well, you see those boys over there? Don't be like them." Or, I don't want you listening to it. Like, my father would be like, I don't want you listening to this type of music just because your brother listened to it. Um, like, there was always this thing that there's something pure about you. You have to maintain that and protect it. And I didn't. You know, I made it up until 20, and then I threw everything out. You know, and I tried to go my own path, and that led me to the iron walls. And it made me realize some of the missteps that I had made, and it also made me reflect on how good my life has been by comparison. It certainly wasn't easy all the time, but I had both parents in the home, and a lot of my peers in school didn't. I had a father who was like no nonsense, and he made sure that we had a level of discipline and hard work, and he stressed the value of being able to enterprise and being able to go out and own something as opposed to work for someone, you know. And I've seen him try and fail. I've tried and failed, and I'm gonna keep working at it until some things stick. Not until something sticks. And I'm just gonna keep working at it. Okay, so man's enemies are the men of his own house. Therefore will I look unto the Lord, I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy, when I fall. I shall arise when I sit in darkness. The Lord shall be a light unto me. Or the Elohim or Yahuwah will be a light unto me. So we're still speaking about that celestial ember, that light that's inside of you, that animating force. That's the thing that you should always reference when you're unsure of what's going on. But because of the school damage that Chief Yuya spoke about, a lot of us don't. We ask for permission first before we do what we know we must do. So rather than um, consulting the answers that are always with us, we go out and ask other people, how we should go about doing things. We have a map, we have a navigation system, but we still ask the crackhead on the corner, hey, you know how to do, you know how to get to, I don't know, you know how to get to the movies? Say, oh yeah, you probably would know though. You outside all day. You say, oh yeah, you just take this corner, you go left, you go right. It's like, all right, if I go left and I go right, and it turns out he was wrong, I can't blame him. You know, there was there's a short story, a book like it's a compilation of short stories called The Madman. The Madman. I referenced this before, I think. I remember referencing it before. It's by Khalil Gibran. And it's just a collection of I did. I always tell that folk story. This is another story where there's a group of people there's a man making a pilgrimage to the holy city, right? And he bumps into someone else and he tells them, this is where I'm going. And he's like, oh, okay, I know how to get there. Actually, I can get you there in one day and one night. And he was like 3 days and 3 nights later, we still didn't reach the city. So he was like, he was mad at me because I allowed him to mislead me. Some people BS you and they hope you say no. At least if you say no, they look like they could have been cool. And you do have some people like that where they're like, oh, you don't do it like that. You should do it like this. Now, you both know he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But on the off chance that what you're doing is wrong, he can tell you were wrong because you didn't listen to him. It makes him feel good. It's like that. But if you do it the way he told you to do it, he'll still tell you you're doing it wrong. And then he'll be like, oh, give me it. You don't understand what you're doing. And then they try it. And then they try to send you away like, go over there and give me some coolant. We fixing a bicycle. Just get the coolant. So they get angry with you because you don't obey that internal navigation system. You're not obedient to that internal light. So you follow what's going on the external. And like Chief touched on that school damage, they teach you that what you need is to keep adding, as opposed to subtracting things. And that's where that happiness comes from the ability to subtract. And it's one of those methods of psyops. It's one of those methods of psyops where it's an educational psyop. Like you just putting information out there. This is what you should do, and you don't necessarily have to follow it. But if you follow it, you feel kind of comfortable following it because this is what people have always done. Everybody fell for the okie doke, and that made it seem normal. until, recently when people started realizing like, this is like a sales tactic. So why am I signing half my life away when people in this other country get college education for free, you know? But yeah, rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall arise, and when I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me. The verse that I was looking for was it was in Exodus. I think it was around the plague of darkness, where the Israelites had light around them. The other verse that came out, like all these like talking about light, um, Psalms, right? Psalm 119. I always used to dread reading this psalm because, like I said, when I was younger, I was just reading it because I was told to read it. I was like, the longest verse in the Bible, you know. But after we went to the Hebrew class, I was like, oh, he's actually like, I didn't realize the Hebrew alphabet was in the Bible. It's right there. All of the letters, all 22 letters, are in these verses or in the beginning of these verses. And this one, I think, was dealing with Nun, right? So he says, your word is a lamp for my feet, a light for my path. I have taken an oath and confirmed it that I will follow your righteous laws. And like this is from meditation from today, and based on what we've been learning and studying, and what Chief has taught us. Like it's like in the preface. Let me see if I can find it. You may read a section of this tome, and it may not penetrate today, and it's sort of like that. You read or you hear Chief say something, and you think you get it, but you didn't get it, or you think you got the whole of it, but you realize like 6, 7, 8 days later, it may be a joke that he tells, and you like 6, 7, 8 days later, you realize you're like, oh, it's like quadruple entendre. Like it's super layered, it's super nuanced, and you keep learning from it, and it's not like it's not like he was saying, I'm gonna get him with this one. It's because it's in him. Is it in you? It's in him. And whenever he speaks, that's what it's being pulled from. And as long as you can connect to it, you don't necessarily have to worry about appropriateness too much. So Psalm 119, it goes on to say, I have suffered much. Preserve my life. Preserve my life, Lord, according to your word. So again, the instructions were given, and I want to stay as aligned with that celestial ember as possible. I want to stay aligned with that promise as possible. I don't want to necessarily veer off and go do my own thing and then come back later. I don't want to do what the world is telling me to do, which is do your own thing. Have your fun. And then once you've had your fun, I keep hitting this laptop. I'm going to break a finger. I need these fingers. Go out and have your fun. Ride that carousel in your youth. And then when you're middle aged and old, then you can look for me. And everything's just going to sort itself out. It's just going to work itself out. Rather than doing that, trying to have my cake and eat it too, I got to realize that cake is unhealthy. I need some healthy food according to your word, not according to what my body is craving. And my body only craves things because I introduce stuff to it. Accept, Lord, the willing praise of my mouth, and teach me your laws. Again, teach me your laws. Though I constantly take my life in my hands, I will not forget your law. The wicked have set a snare for me, but I have not strayed from your precepts. Your statutes are my heritage forever. They are the joy of my heart. My heart is set on keeping your decrees to the very end. I hate double-minded people, but I love your law. So this is something that you can even take to all of these things things that you can take to yourself, even with dealing with how Yahuwah was dealing with the children of Israel. Consider yourself on one end of that exchange, on both ends of that exchange. You know, you can even think of it as your higher cognitive, or that celestial Ember speaking to your earthly counterpart, and using that to align or balance yourself with what you know is right and with what these laws are, and that helps you out. That helps me out tremendously, because it's like I'm both the person speaking and the person being spoken to. You know, I'm the one who's saying this is what's right, and I'm the one who's being spoken to in terms of these are the wrong things that you're doing, and you need to divorce yourself from them. Because those things aren't you. I always always go back to this example. Internally, Chief had spoken. He had answered a question that I asked back when I know life. I think it was Sadulu House that did the webinars, right? And there was a webinar dealing with ancestors, and there was a section where it said that certain energies can be cleansed with different things. You can even use like animals to cleanse yourself. And that's why sometimes people are like a black cat or a black dog, and would like or a black cat, let's say for example, and they would like absorb some of the negativity um, from you, you know, and they would, and I was like, okay, so how do you clean the cat? And she was like, well, the cat recognizes that this isn't a part of it. This thing that it's taken on isn't a part of it, and it goes out and it shakes off that spirit. I'm paraphrasing because it's like 2013 or 14, but yeah, these are certain things that you have to renounce. These are certain things that you have to acknowledge and renounce. This isn't a part of me. This is where I'm going over here. And there was like a manga that the sugars end up with diabetes, right? Sugars. There was a book that I was reading. It was a manga or manhwa, and one of the characters, K, he'd sort of seen a lot of war. He started off as a fighter. He wanted to be a protector. He started off as a fighter, and he got sort of disillusioned by what he had to do in the war, and how he had to basically readjust to civilian life. And he had this obsession with getting to the truth of things. And his truth, saying that purposefully, his truth that he had found was the only purpose in life was superiority over others, supremacy over others. And he had developed that because he had been in a lot of life or death situations, and he survived. And he had a survival of the fittest mentality. In order for me to survive, I have to find supremacy, right? But he became a boxing coach, and he was world famous because he only searched for people who were abnormally talented. He wasn't looking for talented people. He wasn't even looking for geniuses. He was looking for like X-Files type talent. Like, this person shouldn't exist talent. Is this person a human kind of talent? Because he was looking for the apex predator. He wanted that to be the person who he trained, because he was really a purist when it came to being a warrior. And that made me think of looking for the special ones. It's kind of a crude example, but you're looking for the special ones, the ones who have that light in them, like you can see it. It's like the study session, and Chief had given us the example of we were talking about why do we call each other's brother and sister. Why would I call Aki El Karar Aki, right, or Ach? And Ach relates. He had explained to us that Ach relates to the fireplace, right? And you should consider only calling someone your brother if they um, ignite the fire that's inside of you, you know, and you ignite the fire that's inside of them. You ignite that drive towards achieving your what you set out to do, but they're also igniting your drive towards connecting with your source, your originating intent. You know, what was I put here to be? And those who ignite the drive to be that, I should seek them out as opposed to seeking out people who are like, well, you can do this, so why don't you do this over here? It's like, I didn't ask you. You know, nobody asked you. But sometimes we don't say nobody asked you. We just say, like, well, I guess I'll try it out. If it doesn't work out, I'll go back to what I know I should have been doing. You know, and that's something that we constantly do as we've historically done as a people. We know we're good over here, but we go do this other thing, you know, which is what Israel was being reprimanded for. So the last verse I had, I told you I had a couple of verses. The last verse I had was Proverbs 4, 16 to 23. I'd always liked Proverbs growing up. I thought they were very succinct, what to do and what not to do, sort of things. Proverbs and I think it was both my grandparents. I got it from my grandmother, but my grandfather was the minister, so 10 times out of 10, he taught it to her. So she told me, if you're unsure where to start, you should start with Psalms, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes, and that should help you to navigate what it is you need to do. And I do apologize, but I do not have a stand-in. But I do need to take a quick break, and I'm gonna be right back. I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't have any elevator music to play for you. um, but yeah, just moving on to the Proverbs. Um, Proverbs 4, 16 and 23. For they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. Right. So this is talking about people who aren't really who don't follow wisdom or who don't listen to wisdom, right? And they're not people who are going to adhere to what that light is emitting. They want to move in the shadows, right? But this is a directive to those who want to walk that path of light. But the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. Right? So I can attest to moving in a way where I was just moving. You know, I was aimless, and all I knew was I was looking for something that's more true than what I was given. But along the way, I was dabbling, dipping and dabbling in a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have. You know, and I picked up a lot of habits along the way that I then had to discard later. But that they slowed me down. You know, those were a lot of burdens that slowed me down, where I could have been seeking more wise counsel and getting better information as to how to move, like one, how to move like a man, right? Because women need direction from men, but younger men need direction from men who are further along the path. And I was being a know-it-all. It's like, oh, I'll just read a book on it, or watch a YouTube video. Um, but having an elder who can actually help you to break down what it is you're looking at, or sift through, some of the BS that you might internalize and actually hold on to for too long. I didn't have that until I started, but I was moving closer and closer to it until I found chief segments. And then I realized, oh, okay, trial and error is a part of being a man, but at the same time, there's a lot of error that was already sold into the culture that had to be removed as well. So it goes on to say, my son, attend to my words, incline thine ear unto my sayings, that do not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart, for they are life unto those that find them, and help to their flesh. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Right. So again, you're tending to that internal flame, and you're not necessarily allowing external things to dictate how you move, because you're not moving with an addition mindset. You're moving with a subtraction mindset. I have to remove the things that I accumulate that don't necessarily belong here. I have to take the rocks out of my shoes. I have to take the branches and twigs that might get caught in my hair. I have to make sure that what hair, right? I have to make sure that I don't accumulate so much baggage that I can't move efficiently when I need to move. It's just like the segment that Sister Yafe had done. I think it was Sister Yafe who did the what's in your bag segment on Clubhouse. What are you holding on to that you need to remove now? This is the season to do it. This is again, every season is the season to do it. The things that don't belong there. But the solstice season is a time for quiet reflection, and a time for taking stock of what you've got, and a time for removing the things that you've accumulated that don't belong, or the things that keep you heavy or keep you your eyes downcast, as opposed to moving forward with more light. Your steps being light, your words being full of warmth and kindness and encouragement. It's hard to bring that forth when your heart is full of that darkness, as opposed to being full of that illumination that we're sent here with, that was breathed into us. That is the highest cognition that a human being on earthling can have. So I wanted to return now back to Anue, and I'm going to continue with this segment or this section dealing with that celestial light. And remember, this is a celestial ember of archetypical animus, remaining unadulterated through the ages in select individuals. The entwined flame would be a continual thread that oscillates at the highest frequency the divine measure conceptualizes for earthlings, right? So this is something that we have, but it's like the highest that we can conceptualize, that we can not even the highest that we can conceptualize, or not just the highest we can conceptualize, but the highest that we can channel. It's just like a wire that needs to be insulated with rubber, or with a non-conductive sheathing. You're going to need it to guide and direct that energy, but there's only so much of a charge that you could put through that before something shorts out. Something happens. You can definitely increase the capacity of it, and you can increase the amount of voltage that it can carry, but only by so much. Only by so much. And that's why you can have community too, because not only do you have a variety, but you also have others who can help to bear some of the load. So you don't have just one wire, you may have several wires, and you can evenly distribute that charge throughout several wires. And that's why it's important for us to be together. That's why even these segments are important, because we get together after our long strong of carrying that load, and we can sort of remove some of those things that we've accumulated. You know, Shabbat helps us to remove some of those things that we've accumulated over time. We get to rest from our external work, or a time of adding and accumulating, and now we can get into the internal work of removing things that don't, or that obstruct our vision of that light and our ability to see that light, and to even like try to comprehend it, you know, and be able to issue it forth. Okay, so it says, it goes on to say, I am describing the seed characteristics of the divinely endowed people known as the Anu. The Anu are highly evolved people who have been noted and modeled among an aggregation of world nations and cultures. We Anu have been associated with ancient kinetic priesthood. The Twa, Ethiopians, Efe, Aka, Bongo, Congo, Ishango, Nupe, Yoruba, Edo, Israelite, Bambara, Sumerians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Akkadians, and more. Former priesthoods carried the name Anu or variations of it, but these priesthoods were not, as you or I may picture, clergy today. These were very classical mystical orders and upheld the great value of archaic wisdom and aspirations, right? I don't want to touch on it too much, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't point it out, because, like I said, I didn't properly read Micah last time. I kind of skimmed it. I went a little deeper this time, but it certainly deserves another read. But I think in the 4th chapter, it was speaking about Mount Sinai. You know, and it's interesting seeing what's going on with certain groups of people dealing with commandments that the chief had touched on last night's segment. I thought it was interesting that Micah chapter 4 had touched on it again. I'll pull it up here because I didn't prep it. But in the last days it shall come to pass that that the mountains of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk his paths. For the Lord shall go forth unto Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Then he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall sit every man under his vine, under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts hath spoken. For the people will walk every one in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. And I was like, that's so interesting. It made me want to look into it more, because it was lining up. You know what I mean? So I thought I should share that. There's a lot, I'm sure there's a lot going on there in terms of prophecy, but I just saw it, you know what I mean? Because I was going over each of the verse, because I only saw the first verse, Micah 7, 5 through 9. And then I read through the book, and I was reading past that, and I remember what was stated last night. I said, I need to look into this, you know. So I briefly looked into it. I'm going to look into it a little bit more in time coming. But I just thought it was interesting that all of these nations, all of these people were gathered up on top of this mountain, and every man would worship his God. You know, I thought that part was real interesting. I'll look into it more though. maybe I'll have something to share in the next segment when I'm sharing. But that was just interesting to me. So yeah, so the Anu are highly evolved people who have been noted and modeled among an aggregation of world nations. Many people are disturbed by the idea of secret societies. Individuals who choose to interface in private and cultivate an agenda that works best for themselves and their kin are generally considered to be the most nefarious. The truth is, certain information is just not decipherable or conceivable to all people. And she gives an example. Um, for example, if a room of quantum physicists conference with one another and discuss the deeper thought of their chosen vocation, it would not be unfair if one who is not versed in that technical verbiage were unable to comprehend what they are saying. So if a bunch of people were gathered together and they know physics and they're talking about black holes, I can't just pop up in the room and be like, well, let's talk about sports because I don't know nothing about no black holes. It's like, you don't need to be here. Go talk about sports with the sports people. Don't come here and say we can't talk about black holes. You know, yeah. So it continues to say that um, even after great, you can't consider it unfair if you can't be versed in that. If you're not versed in that, you can't comprehend what they're saying. Even after great explanation, there's some individuals who still will not comprehend the matrix of quantum physics. In a group activity, even one as common as speaking, the kinetic vibration of enterprise always falls to the denominator achievable by all. Meaning, whatever you could talk about in terms of physics, you may talk about the quantum physics of football, and it could limit you, or you could move forward with it, unless they're just like, well, I don't understand all that. All I know is you kick the ball into the end zone, But it's gonna fall to the lowest common denominator. Using our previously mentioned example, the group of quantum physicists would not be able to experience the best form of their exchange, while the individual in the room who lacks the ability to cognize and match the frequency with the rest of them is present. That one individual would decrease the energy of the energetic and subjective vibration of the exercise, right? And this is the part that connected me to that Ember, um, that Ember again. Like it brings on what Chief brought up in the beginning. In a fractal depiction, all forces on the planet will always emulate if left to their most ascended wavelength. There's invariable hidden and seen, as there is spirit and body. There are conversations that only your God can assimilate, and unequivocal experiences that only man can fathom. Our concept of Anu maintains that this way of life is not for everyone. Many humans are attracted to the light and warmth of light, the light and warmth of life-changing culture, but only a preferred few will be able to discern and live the Anu genius and order. So again, you're keeping close to that light. It's not as easy as just knowing it or learning about it, right? Chief had touched on it in the last segment, last strong with Sister Maria. Just because people know the truth doesn't mean that they're gonna follow it. They don't care, which is hard sometimes for people to fathom. Which is again why it's important to explore the mental model that you're flowing with. You may not be able to conceive of someone who just doesn't care about certain things that you hold to be like primal. If someone attacks a child, like that would get you upset, right? That would get you angry. Someone else may be standing next to you, and they may be angry too, but their anger may be different from your anger. Your anger may be like he just attacked a defenseless child. Like, how weak. That's the, I don't know. Exactly. What is that? Yeah, how could you do this to this child? While the person next to you would be like, how could he do that? It's like, I know, right? It's like, yeah. The other person is like, that child's kind of cute. I want to do something with that one. You can't fathom that someone who was thinking that way is standing right next to you, apparently outraged at the same thing that you're outraged at. Because people are wired differently. And once you begin to explore the different models of thought that people can carry with them, then you'll understand that this is really this is a very rare thing, because you may be one of the special ones, but you can't necessarily some of these children are Chucky Dog Demon Spawn. I used to hate that movie when I was younger. I realized how strong I was when I was younger too, because I was terrified of that dog. You could not put me in a room with a dog. I would freak out. Get this dog away from me, because we throwing hands if you start moving. I can start all that screaming and running. And I think I must have been like 9 or 10, and I went to the bathroom, and there was like this window. This is what my grandmother's house. There was like this window where you could see nothing outside of this window, and there was like no curtain up. The only thing that was keeping people from seeing inside of the house was the bathroom door was open with the shower curtain, and eventually curtain went up. But my cousin and my brother, oldest brother, thought it would be funny to push the door, because there's a push out, there's a door you pushed out. They thought it'd be funny to hold the door and say, Chucky was in there. I was 10, so they must have been at least around 18, 19. I pushed both these suckers out the way. I pushed both of them out the way. I wasn't about that dog. But yeah, a lot of people function off of a different mindset and a different vibration. And being special is something that, like, a lot of people can claim to be special, but when you are special, if you're not raised to celebrate it in a healthy manner, then you could try to shy away from it. Or if someone tell you that you're special, you try to diminish it in some way, or you indulge in self-deprecating humor. You don't really honor the specialness, and you think it might be common. You might even think everybody has it, but until you standing next to undercover pedophile, and you don't realize that you're angry at the same situation for different reasons. Their reason is that they're a complete degenerate, and your reason is because you know that this child should have been protected. You had an innate desire to make sure that this child was safe and they were covered, but it's just an example of how, and it might have been a demon spawn, but it's an example of what kind of mental model that you're operating with, or the type of lenses that you're looking at life with. And if you're looking at life with lenses that distort your vision of the truth, then you're gonna be in problems, because you don't know what you're looking at. You don't know what you're looking at. You know what you're seeing, because it's what your brain is telling you you're seeing, but you don't know what the object is that you're looking at, because there's some sort of filter blocking clear vision, right? So when I was thinking about that celestial light as well, what came to mind was the 14 keys and the key of truth, right? And I could read the whole the whole thing with truth, but I'll try to keep it short. But truth is matter in its actualized state. It is the soul of a force. All that exists around the truth is illusion. Illusion shrouds the potency of truth. For those who have not yet developed the sensorium to witness the true forms of life and death, which are the materializations and disrobings of truth, respectively, we, we observe and experience truth's illusion through our five senses. Our own physical, mental, emotional, and emotional structures are are the illusions of the truth of the soul, as this great truth decides to form a vehicle suitable for the earth. It forms genotypes through the manipulation of DNA, which properly accommodates its intent. So again, you can see that the celestial force, again, is the Most High speaking to Israel, but like consider yourself to be both. You know, you're both that higher cognitive function and the lower one. But the higher cognitive function is like a shadow reflection of something that's even greater. You get what you get because it's all that the human form can sort of handle. But it's like a fractal. I always encourage people to look up fractals. I think they're super. I guess it's the nerd in me. I think they're really cool when you see how they operate, because the whole thing exists in such a small space. You know, and Chief was touching on this with the most recent podcast. He explains it much better than I could. That master builder, you know, you have these atoms um, that have their shape, and then you have corresponding forms. Corresponding meaning they have a similar structure, but they're on a different degree. You know, you may have it on a higher degree where you have a sun that exists as like a proton, and then you have neutrons and electrons that are around them. You know, of course, there's something higher than that and higher than that. The Book of Enoch speaks of several layers of heaven. You know, not just when I die, all I'm going to see is blue sky, clear blue skies and clouds, and everybody's going to be wearing white togas or robes, you know, or white sheets. They look like my cheap Halloween costume. I didn't think of nothing. I just threw a sheet over my head to get candy, poke two holes in it. But they can see my shoes. It's like, oh, that's Tonio. But yeah, man, those are some of the things that I really wanted to touch on, considering that this celestial ember, and considering what was spoken of last strong with Sister Maria and the Chief when they were dealing with um, women needing a man's direction, you know, or you have that feminine that needs to be directed by the masculine, you know, and you have the originating cause that's powering them both, you know. So I really thought that was an interesting concept. I wanted to dig into it a little bit more, even though let's see. No, I think the chat is pretty calm tonight. Yeah, I had too many jokes for y'all. But yeah, man, definitely will you all a restful Shabbat. Willfully, this was like helpful in some way, and we're able to get something out of it. You know, main takeaway is think back to the source of that light. Um, think back to that source of light. You know, not the source of the light, but that source of light that's dwelling inside of you, and that's animating you and pushing you towards your soul's intention. You know, yeah, we up in here. Yeah, man, your soul's intention is, and that's another thing that I was thinking about today too. You know, just like pasta, it's like, all right, we about to wrap up. You know, so sisters can go in the back and put all the chicken and chitlins out the oven. You know, start setting up the table. You know, another thing. Proceeds to preach for 3 more hours, but yeah, one of the things that also came to mind was, what was your original intent? And the reason I asked this is because Chief had said something about just tracing and chronicling your history, and just going back, even putting pencil to paper, but going back and seeing like how your life unfolded itself, how you got to where you are now. And I wanted to ask the original intent because he had said something. I think it was on the. It might have been on the Clubhouse. I don't know if it was this strong or last strong. But before you start saying but, you already know what you should do. And when I was younger, I know that there was a couple of things I was tossing up in my head of what I would do or what I would be when I got older. Um, One of them was I wanted to be a pilot. I like the idea of just being able to go anywhere, whenever I felt like it. The other one was lawyer was there, but that was because of money. You One that I really wanted to do was psychiatrist. That one was something that I really wanted to do, but I didn't have any clear path, so I ditched it and went for something easy, that I thought was easier, which was teacher. Even with artists, I just wanted to do art. I didn't want to be an artist. I didn't know how that would work. I just knew I like making stuff. But just your original intention or what your soul guides you towards is something that I wanted you all to also meditate on and help you to stay within the realms of what you know instead of being all over the place. Like what you know comes from that internal source. And for women, your head is the connection to that internal source. That's the connection to that higher cognition. And he gives you direction based on what he's receiving. Is not, I'm going to go around my man, or Jesus is my man, or pastor is my man. Is that you have a man. Even that is a gift. Sometimes you don't really respect the specialness of being in a union. And I've seen so many women who leave their man because their friends are single and they want to hang out with their friends more, which is dumb. It's not wise. Wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, that's it for me. Peace, everyone. Willing you all enjoy the rest of your evening. We have Clubhouse tomorrow with Sister Yafe. We have our Thursday bill. Let's see. Leave the suspense open. And Sister Maria will be back next strong. If you would like to continue with this stream of thought, or you found the stream of thought to be enlightening, you can always find a copy of the Anu Way. Links are usually in the chat. And you can also visit anulifeglobal.org if you want to learn more or sign up and be a part of the ministry. The winter retreat winter retreat is coming up, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And if you're interested, again, just check out Anu Life Global. And I am signing out. Going to rest. Peace, 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 peace. Give thanks.